What's going on everyone, Jack here, and I'm back today with a tutorial. Today we're going to be doing a curly top taper fade, and we're going to be using both scissors and clippers in this video, so it's going to be a nice balance of different elements of cutting hair, which is nice. And you can see me here just wetting down the hair, making sure everything's nice and moist, ready for when we're sectioning. And sectioning is very key to your haircut. It helps you to break everything up and to have a plan in your head of what you're going to do. Some people, they just pick the hair up and cut it, and there's no kind of structure to what they're doing, but one of the main things I like to have is structure, otherwise I find myself getting lost. So here you can just see me sectioning out the crown. We want everything to be at natural fall, otherwise if you cut it against its natural fall, then what's going to tend to happen is it's going to repel, and it's just going to be an annoyance in your haircut. That little pokey bit in the crown that always stands up, yeah, you don't want that there. So this is why we're sectioning it out the way we are, and we're just making a little box section on top as the head begins to round, just to separate the top and the sides. Nothing crazy, no crazy section patterns, just a simple box section on top following the shape of the crown, and then just to the edge of the hairline. Nothing too crazy there. And we're just putting a couple clips in just to make sure that it all sits correctly. And here what you can see I'm doing is I'm taking diagonal sections and I'm picking the hair up. You can't really see too well here, but I'm pulling outwards with my fingers, creating a triangular shape. So I'm going, my fingers are going longer towards the contour and shorter as I work down the side of the head. And the reason being is I'm trying to create a triangular shape, so this will maintain length on the contour, and that will allow me to have that really nice textured top and have a really nice square shape whilst keeping the texture, rather than taking the fade really high, as this is more of a taper fade, not just a straight up skin fade. So you can see I'm trying to get as tight in as possible, and you can see I'm also working very small sections. All my sections are at a finger's width, nothing more, nothing less. If it's anything more, what's going to happen is I'm going to lose my guide, and if I lose my guide, then I have no idea what I'm cutting. And if my sections are too small, I'm going to spend a crazy amount of time doing this haircut, when you don't need to be that precise. You just need to be able to have enough hair to see your guide and to make a cut. You can see here I'm combing under just to make sure I can pick up those short hairs. And again, just working off, you can see here I'm taking another section, combing everything out of the way, combing the hair I'm cutting in the other direction. So now that I've explained what's going on, I'm just going to leave the clips to run a little bit more, but the principles are I'm taking fingers width sections and I'm taking them diagonally, and I'm pulling my fingers out in a triangular motion, allowing me to create that triangular shape on the sides. I'm tucking my fingers tighter in as I work further downwards on the head. And any questions you guys have about this section of the video, please leave them in the comments below, and I will answer the questions the best I can. So at this point, I'm transitioning from the back into the sides. Usually you might see people when they're doing a cross graduation start from the other sideburn and work backwards. But the thing is about this technique is that form is form. So whether it's cut forwards or backwards, if the form is correct in a triangular motion, it's going to flow forwards or backwards. So I just find it easier to work all the way around the head. Just feel that it saves a little bit of time rather than having to find yourself again on the other side or make sure that everything's balanced. You're just following your guide from previous. So I just think that this is much easier thinking wise and practicality wise when you're creating a forward sitting messy style. So now I'm going on to the top, and what I'm going to do is create a profile guide, and this is going to work vertically from the back to the front of the head, and this is going to allow me to set a guide to follow for the rest of the cut on top. So as you can see here, I'm sectioning out a finger's width section and everything is combed out of the way and clipped out of the way. I'm picking the hair up in my fingers using the small side of the comb so I have a lot of control. And you can see I really want to have as much control as possible. So you can see I'm picking the hair up, finding the length that I want to cut, and I'm making that cut. Moving forwards, you can see that I have a small piece of my previous to follow as a guide, and I'm going to carry on setting my guide. And again through the front here. And now I'm pushing all the hair from that side onto the other side now. And this is going to leave that small piece of hair as a guide for me to follow using horizontal sections moving from the back to the front of the head. So you can see here, despite the slightly poor up camera angle on this side, that I do have a guide there, and all I have to do is just connect the rest of that hair to that piece. now I'm coming on to the other side, and I think it's a bit easier to explain because the camera angle is slightly better. But I'm taking fingers width horizontal sections. Everything I'm doing is a fingers width, and this is really important because this is going to give me the control that I need to create a precise cut. So all you can see now is me picking up the hair. I'm moving back to front in fingers width horizontal sections, picking up the hair, finding my guide and cutting it. I'm not trying to connect anything right now. I'm just pulling up 90 degrees straight up from the head. So you can see now I'm combing all the hair forwards, making sure it's all sitting, and I'm taking now slightly pivoting sections from the front hairline, just diagonally backwards, and this is going to create my connection between the top and the sides. And this is simply just block graduation. I'm pulling everything out horizontally from the head, finding the hair from previous. As you can see, I lift it up with my scissors and I make that cut, move along, grip the hair. I'm pulling the hair outwards, really over directing it, finding my guide and making my cut. You don't want to cut the hair until you actually find your guide. If you cut it before your guide, then you're going to mess up the whole shape and everything is going to look off. You can see just finding that connection through the front, not taking any hair off if I don't need to, just anything that is not connected to the hair that I've cut on the sides. So now you can see I've blow dried the hair out, diffused everything, and I'm just combing to make everything sit how I want it to. And I've grabbed a number 4 guard, and you can see I'm not working inwards towards the head, I'm coming outwards because I want to maintain as much length on that contour as possible. This is what's going to give us that really full textured look on top. If I take too much off, then he's going to start to look a bit like a football, and we really don't want it to look like that. So you can see just briefly on the other side how I'm working upwards and not really scooping outwards, but my clipper is more going towards the ceiling. So I'm not creating a really triangular shape, but it's more of a squared shape. And now I've got a 1.5 guard opened, so this makes it a low number 2 in my eyes, and I'm just flicking underneath that number 4. One trick I learned very early on in my career was that you can kind of look at these things like mathematics. So a number 4 guard, half of 4 is 2, and those 2 guards, as long as your clipper motion is in the correct way, then these 2 will blend perfectly together. And I can't lie, that trick has just worked for me. I don't know if any of you guys have ever used this trick, but if you have, let me know in the comments. It just works for me a treat, and I do it all the time. I'm always going with a number 4, whether it's a skin fade or this, go with a number 4 to set my shape, then come underneath it with the 2 just to take all that bulk out. So that's a really effective tip there, in order to help you have a nice graduation between the top and the sides. But here I've just got a little 2.5, and just any little dark spots I'm seeing I'm just taking out. Now moving on to the side taper, got a 1.5 here, and that's a 1 guard open. Then now I'm moving on to my 0.5 guard, and I'm just tapering this through before coming down to a 0 inevitably in that point, but for some reason I cut the footage, I don't know why. Here I've got a 1 guard open, and I'm really pushing this quite high up the head just so I have a really nice tapered look through the back. His hair is quite dense, so sometimes with them higher grades you do have to just push it that bit up to get that nicer gradient. And now I've got a 0.5 guard open, so effectively a low number 1, and I'm coming straight underneath what I've just done. Again, just because his hair is so dense, I can just get away with doing stuff like this. If it was finer hair, I would start the taper lower down and use the same technique, but just a lot lower down the head, as I know that with fine hair it will fade a lot easier and be a lot more transparent. But just knowing my client's hair type allows me to be a bit more experimental with how high I take these things. So as I'm working further down, I'll be working with a 0.5 now, just beginning to blend through that bottom part. And I am being aware that, again, as dense as his hair is, his hair goes fine the shorter you go. So when I'm working with this 0.5, I'm just constantly flicking the lever. If I'm seeing myself create a little line or anything, I'm just making sure that it's all cleaned up as I'm going along, and then just finishing up with the 0 there and just flicking between a 0.2 and the 0 to tidy up the bottom line. Now coming on to the around the ear shape up, you can see there's a lot of excess hair on his neck, but I'm just trying to still keep that line quite natural. You don't want to push that back too far. You don't want him having a really tight neckline and then in 3-4 days time he's got a load of growth in his neck. That would not be enjoyable. And you can see I'm really arching my clip around. I'm following in a circular motion. I'm not being too rigid with how I'm using the clipper, otherwise I'm going to get a really like jaggedy shape around the ear. Again here, you can see his hairline is more sparse in this area, but I do want to keep this as natural as possible, because you don't want to push it too far in on one side and then the other side will be left looking uneven. But I'm just being aware of the fact his hair is quite sparse, so you want to be more gentle in that area. And again here, you can see just pivoting around the ear, making sure I have a really nice shape. Again, with that shape up on the C cup on the front there, you can see I'm pivoting my clipper. I'm not being too rigid with it, being nice and loose. You've got to be one with your tools. So you can see here, just lightly tapping on the front of his hairline here. It doesn't really need to be pushed back too far to create a sharp line, as long as you keep enough density through the front. And here's the finished look, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thank you all for watching.